Grand Champion has been the holy grail for Rocket League players almost as long as the game has been around, whether it be in its original form as the highest rank in the game, or today's version that has been broken into tiers. The GC tag represents membership to an exclusive club that, statistically speaking, few players achieve. But over the years, has the skill and abilities required to make GC changed? For this video, I have assembled low GC replays for each year of Rocket League in an effort to visualize how the barrier to entry for this rank has evolved over time. Along the way, I will explain the important events and discoveries that changed the game through the seasons, and to keep it interesting, I have taken some of my example clips from players you just might recognize. Our journey begins in 2016 with Legacy Season 2. This is the first competitive season to have a Grand Champion rank, as Season 1 featured a bronze, silver, and gold system which awarded platinum to the top 100 in each playlist. To be the highest rank in Rocket League at this time meant you had mastered what we would now consider pretty basic abilities. Watching these 2016 GC clips, there's really not much here that one would consider flashy or mechanical. But these mechanics, along with their wall play and aerial abilities, were impressive for the time. To give you an idea of where Rocket League skill was at in 2016, the half flip was only discovered a few months ago, and even in GC, most hadn't learned it yet. Kickoffs were single dodges, assuming they bothered dodging at all, and backboard reads like this had a pretty good chance of getting voted to the front page of the subreddit. In the early days of Rocket League, to earn your season reward or title, there were no win requirements. You only needed to touch the rank. And even though smurfing for titles was a problem, Legacy Season 2 is probably the most exclusive GC title in the game, if only due to the size of the player base for this less than year-old game. Coming in at 9 months or 276 days, Season 3 is known for both being the longest season on record and for resulting in a Grand Champion title that would eventually become a meme in the community. Though looking back, the Season 3 GC hate wasn't really deserved. After a hard reset to start the season did not go as planned, Psyonix was forced to step in partway through and make an adjustment to a broken ranking system in which the top 5 ranks were being held by only 1% of the player base. Yes, at this time, less than 100 players had managed to break through into Grand Champion. Soon after the adjustment redistributed players into the higher ranks, the community started to wonder whether if now there were too many people getting into GC, and the extra long season just seemed to magnify that problem more. Mechanically, I think you'll notice some advancement in skill has taken place in the 9 months since Season 2 ended. Players are diagonally flipping on kickoffs, making use of flicks and fakes more, and half flips are starting to make appearances. Due to the introduction of the crate system and player-to-player trading, we also see more variety in car designs. Yes, high-level players used to actually have some fun with their car setups back in the day, unlike the boring carbon copy Octane and Fenix we see now. While no rank distributions were released during this era of Rocket League, a Psyonix dev comment a few months before the end of the season showed a GC percentage of 0.3%, which seems like it was a pretty exclusive rank. So why, you may ask, did Season 3 GC become a meme? Well, first of all, most of the community was unaware of these statistics and just believed the repeated myth that there were too many undeserving GCs. But mainly, the issue actually stemmed from changes implemented in Season 4. Psyonix introduced a new ranking system for Season 4, giving us the familiar bronze to GC span that would last all the way until free-to-play. This was also the last season that featured non-standard maps in competitive. At this point, Neo Tokyo and its ramps had already been removed, but the sloped version of Wasteland and the Starbase Octagon were still in rotation. While the freestyle community was starting to push Rocket League into new creative areas, as of Season 4, GC was still a rank achieved mostly by playing fast, rotating properly, and having consistent air and wall play. Even though the ability to flip reset has been around for a while at this point, it wasn't really being practiced or used by competitive players. The end of Season 4 was the first time Psyonix released official rank distribution stats. These showed Season 4 GC represented just the top 0.07% of the 2v2 player base. Quite the drop from the 0.3% of Season 3. This change played a large role in creating a lot of ridicule for Season 3 GCs, since most of them no longer made the cut anymore. Thus, seeing a Season 3 GC tag in Champ 1 was viewed as proof they were bad or carried, when really it was Psyonix that moved the goalposts. Season 5 is the shortest of the Legacy era, so one can't really expect to see the skill barrier to reach GC change much in just 85 days. Squishy's famous RLCS ceiling shot occurred during this season, and while pro mechanics were starting to advance, your average Grand Champion player was still just focused on fast aerials, fast recoveries, flicks, fakes, and maybe the odd air dribble or double tap. After 3 seasons in which rewards were earned by just touching the rank, the win requirement system was introduced for Season 5, though at this time it required 12 wins for each rank. Season 6 was the first time I personally hit Champ, putting me in the top 1.5% of the player base. Meanwhile, Grand Champion remained very exclusive at just 0.08%. To put it into today's terms, GC was about where Grand Champion 3 sits right now. Musty was hanging out in low GC at this time and was mostly known for his Reddit posts. His YouTube channel sat at just a few hundred subscribers, and as you can see, he had yet to start using his now iconic car design. By 2018, pros have started practicing and even employing flip resets in their competitive games. But the difference between a low GC and a pro is almost the same as comparing a GC to a plat. Since the focus of this video is to look at the minimum skill it took to get GC in each year of Rocket League, in most cases we've been looking at GC clips around the 1500 mark. Meanwhile, pros in Season 7 could be found closer to 2000 MMR. Yes, in the Legacy era, if you were a new GC, you were technically the same rank as a pro player. It was an issue that did get brought up from time to time by the community, with suggestions of an additional rank or even just special titles for the top 100, but in the end, at this point in time, GC was still a very small fraction of the player base, and to Psyonix it didn't really make sense to try and separate them. That being said, as of Season 7, it did seem some players in the 1500s were trying to imitate their pro-level peers, as I found several examples of more complicated shots and setups in the replays I looked at. Yes, flip resets and ceiling shots were no longer just for freestylers anymore, and some of the new crop of players coming into GC had been working on these mechanics for a while. Of course, pulling off shots like this against Grand Champion defenses is a lot different than free play or lower ranks, and as such, attempts seem to more often end in pain than glory. As of Season 9, Grand Champion in 2s has climbed up to now include the top 0.3% of the player base. Yes, the same level it was after the infamous Season 3, which means if we are to use the same reasoning as some in the community after Season 3, we are forced to admit that Season 9 GC tags and all those after it must be considered fraudulent. And that kinda sucks for content creator Wayton Pilkin, as Season 9 was the first time he hit Grand Champion. Sorry man. Seriously though, the exclusivity debate and whether GC was as skilled or not anymore was a constant topic of discussion for some in the community during the following seasons. And it's true the GC percentage did continue to rise, but we're still just talking decimals here. As for whether skill levels went down, well, that's something you can weigh in on personally as we go through these clips. Oh, and before we move on, I do have to shout out Wayton's teammate in this game for managing to pull off the flip reset goal. In all the replays I looked at for this video, I can honestly tell you that actually scoring with a flip reset in low GC seemed pretty rare. At this point, it has been 3 years since the first GC clips we looked at, and while some obvious mechanical skill increases have been seen, you might be surprised to know that when I looked into the stats behind the scenes, what makes a GC in 2019 is almost the same as what made one in 2017. Yes, there might be faster reactions and better kickoffs, but the actual average speed of players has only slightly increased. Aerial play has improved, but time on the ground stats indicate there isn't necessarily more aerials. In my search for some stat that has improved or trended upwards over the legacy seasons, I only found a couple that were notable. The first one I thought was interesting was distance to teammates. It seems GCs have improved their spacing a bit, though the change we're talking about here is just a little less than the length of an octane. And then we have one I've mentioned a few times in the past, demolitions. The importance of physical play took some time to be accepted by the community, but by Season 12, GCs in the 2v2 playlist are averaging 0.7 demos per game, over double the rate of Season 4. Season 12 marked the first time content creator Sunless Khan reached Grand Champion, while his channel also passed the 400,000 subscriber mark. If you guys have enjoyed this video so far, you can help me hit the 300,000 subscriber mark by clicking the sub button right now. Also, be sure to drop a comment with your thoughts about the progression of skill you've been watching through these historical clips. What do you think? Are GCs getting better, worse, or staying the same as seasons go by? The final Legacy season ended up being the longest since Season 3, lasting 182 days as it was extended to account for the upcoming free-to-play launch. At the end of Season 14, Grand Champion had expanded to include almost the top 1%. Still exclusive, of course. I mean, being the top 1% in anything should be considered an achievement. But this was the highest top rank percentage in Rocket League history, and thus triggered a lot of complaints in regards to the quality of Grand Champion players being allegedly diluted. Once again, the community wondered, did the Season 14 tag even mean anything? Of course, longer seasons like this will no doubt cause more rank inflation, and more opportunities for people to carry their friends up to a rank they don't belong. But the idea that undeserving GCs were flooding the ranks was not really backed by any statistical data. According to the average stats I looked into, GCs still had the same general skills as they had during past seasons. At least on paper anyways. 2020 finishes off with the much anticipated free-to-play launch. Low GC now has its own rank. It is Grand Champion 1, and higher skill players are spread across 3 additional tiers, GC2, GC3, and Supersonic Legend. Coming in at the top 0.4% of players, it may seem like GC got more exclusive again in free-to-play Season 1. But taking into account the large increase in players brought in by the update, 0.4% could still very well represent the same or even more GCs than the 1% of Season 14. Statistics really don't prove anything when you don't have the whole picture. As we move into 2021, I think it's important to consider the possibility that after more than 6 years, skills in the higher ranks could be reaching the point of diminishing returns. You see, in the early Rocket League seasons, we had impactful breakthroughs and discoveries that caused very obvious advancements in skill across all the ranks, including GC, due to the introduction of training packs, the influx of tutorial videos by content creators and pros, and even the gradual implementation of advanced freestyle mechanics. High-level Rocket League play has evolved a lot. But it's been years since we've had any groundbreaking changes in the meta that would be anywhere close to what flip resets, ceiling shots, or even wave dashing and speed flipping has meant for this game. It's not even too much of a stretch to suggest the skills you see in GC1 in 2022 are pretty much the same as those found in pre-free-to-play low GC games. Of course, you're always going to have those players that are a little more mechanical and seem to stand out over the ones that achieve GC just through consistency and game sense. But I would still guess you would have a hard time differentiating between a Legacy 14 GC clip and a free-to-play Season 6 one. It's true, pro play has continued to evolve, and by extension, the Supersonic Legend rank, but just because professional players start employing something new like wall dashing, doesn't mean players are going to need to add that to their skill set just to keep up in Grand Champion 1. With the recent completion of Season 10, we have again passed 1% for GC1s in the 2v2 playlist. Yes, if you are Grand Champion 1, you are in the top 1.13% of the player base. Whether that's still exclusive enough is of course always up for debate, as is the alleged skill of current GCs. Though these opinions are often muddied by personal experiences rather than actual data. But once again, I think it's important to remember the context of the numbers. An increase in GC percentage stats can also be caused by a reduction in total players. It isn't 2020 anymore, and with a majority of the leaving players most likely being ranked below GC, one could expect that percentage to go up as a result. So these numbers don't necessarily mean GC has gotten any easier or less skilled. Counting both Legacy and free-to-play, we are currently in the 25th competitive season of Rocket League. To start off that season, Psyonix stepped in to make a rare rank adjustment for Season 11, though it remains to be seen how that will affect both distribution and the apparent skill set of GC players. Now, I know some random clips and stats don't make for the most accurate comparison of Grand Champion through the seasons, but I hope you at least found watching this record of skill progression over the last 8 years an interesting experience. If you enjoyed this, please make sure to like, subscribe, and check out one of my favorite recent videos where I put every rank in the same lobby and recorded their individual commentary. My name is Rocket Sledge. Thanks for watching.